Welcome to the Cheap Seats Podcast. I'm Dominic. This is episode 23 now. We're doing back-to-back. We had one last week. We're doing one this week. We are going to preview the NFL championship, conference championship rounds this weekend. It was an eventful one this past weekend with the San Francisco 49ers getting the narrowest of victories in the divisional round over the Green Bay Packers, the pesky Green Bay Packers. I know we'll get into that and break it down in due time, but I want to welcome on Joseph again, joining us 2 weeks in a row. I don't think this has happened on this podcast before, which I should say is presented by the Cheap Seats Media Network. I have to say that every week I'm contractually obligated. But welcome on Joseph again, and then for the first time, my good friend Bryce Wong has joined us. He's got his 49ers gear on as well. He's a big 49ers fan. He's from the Bay Area. Bryce, it's great to have you. As always, introduce yourself to the people. Tell them who you are.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on, Dom. Congrats on your Michael Jordan number of podcast episode for you, bro. Number 23, that's a big number.
We did it.
Giant feat coming out here, coming consistently with some great content. A little bit about myself, let's just dive into sports about myself.
Hell yeah.
Avid Bay Area fan. We're San Francisco all the way. Warriors, Sharks, Giants. Sorry, A's. And of course, our 49ers. My grandfather has been a season ticket holder since 1952.
Ooh, Keys are days.
Keys are days. Yep, Keys are all the way to Candlestick. And those season tickets have been now passed down to my dad, and now we are continuing the legacy. So, that's a little bit about myself.
Damn, I didn't even know that, Bryce. That's sacred. It's just like kind of like the Faria family over here. It's just keeping the tickets, passing them down, enjoying it. That's incredible. Love it. I know you've been a diehard 49er fan ever since, I've met you, so I know it goes back a ways, so I respect that a lot. Us Farias really respect that a lot because we wear it on our sleeves. When did so Joseph and Bryce went to college together, San Diego State University, so they went down south to meet each other and fall in love. You guys remember the first time you guys met?
Absolutely, man. It's a great story. It's a really short and great story. Our good friend Kevin Nordby, shout out to Kevin.
Another great guy.
Probably halfway through my first semester as a freshman in my communications class, Com 103. It was Kevin Com 103 in my phone for the longest time. But one class day, he came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, like, I don't know if you've ever started about thinking about living where you're going to live next year." He picked me out because I was wearing my 100 Pence jersey the first day I ever walked into class.
Bold.
Shout out Jersey Thursdays. So there you go. He was like, "Yeah, man, we've got two great guys. One of them's my roommate, and we met this other guy named Joseph." And I was like, "Yeah, man, sounds good. Better than anything I could come up with." So first day I met Joe was in the office of signing our lease together and saying, "So I guess we're gonna be roommates." And it's been history ever since. We were roommates pretty much all throughout our latter 3 years of San Diego State days. Sophomore, junior year, and senior year. That's the quick little story of how we met.
Wow, got set up. That is the most college dude story ever. Every guy who went to college, it's always like, "Hey, I got a buddy that you haven't even met yet, but we're gonna live together next year." And it's like, "Oh, sounds chill." Like I've done that a million times in my life, just moving in with random people. It's just, I guess that's just dudes being dudes. So good for that. Is Jersey Thursdays? Is that a San Diego State wide thing? Like everywhere wears a jersey on Thursday?
I think it was even like I just wore it even before I even knew what it was, and somebody told me it was a big day on Thursdays, like frat days, and I was just like, oh. And I kind of stopped wearing jerseys after that because if you look at me, I'm definitely not a frat guy. Other than that, I feel exactly. I think the great thing about college is when you're in your freshman year, there's like rooming with somebody random is not as fearful as living alone by yourself and being that one weirdo
Yeah.
who just has an apartment by himself,
It's like a rite of
right? So
passage. It's a rite of passage.
exactly. You know,
Hanging out.
it's a part of the growing experience. You know,
Yeah, you figure out
100%.
who you can live with and who you can't. And I guess yeah, just for guys, it's just like yeah, whatever, dude, let's do it. Well, good stuff. I wanted to hear the origin story there, and I'm surprised you guys agreed to record when your Aztecs are taking on the Wyoming Cowboys right now.
I know,
Down there in
man.
San Diego, big
Hey, the
matchup.
Aztecs haven't been playing that well lately, so hopefully they win
Uh,
tonight.
I I've been saying the Mountain West is a tough conference. I think
It's
they're one of the
really
it
tough.
is it is the most consistently, like, you never know whose year it's gonna be.
yeah.
Except it's never gonna be Hawaii's year. You know, shout out to Hawaii, live in my heart. But it's never gonna be the Rainbow Warriors year. But everybody else, toss up.
They need to move. They need to move to the Big West again. They need to go back because
Yeah, I think they
I
do.
think that's more their speed. Although UC Davis has been doing a great job tearing up the Big West this year, but that's not what we're here to talk about. The Aztecs are a 17.5 point favorite. I think it's moved down to 16.5. Never mind. So uh we'll see. I have a buddy who's a big Wyoming fan here, so maybe we'll have him on soon. But I've been watching that one. But we're not here to talk college basketball. We're not here to talk basketball at all. We're here to talk football. Man, this weekend was a stressful one, boys. It was a stressful one. I don't know if you want to start with your reactions to this past weekend because I think that might be a good place to start that we can roll into this weekend. We can look at the matchup coming up in the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game. But what stood out to you about this 49ers divisional round win on Saturday night? Any initial feelings that you want to get off your chest?
I'm glad you've created a safe space to talk about
Yep.
this.
Yep. This a judgment-free zone. Everything you say
No,
here
judgment free.
will be
No,
put on the internet.
I think we're always so critical of our own teams. I think that goes with a lot of fan bases. But I mean, gosh, you could look at it this way too. Just the divisional round in total was a more exciting one than the wild card round. I think every game in the wild card round was kind of a blowout or more than one score, except the Lions Rams game, and then three of the four this weekend end up being one score, with even the Texans Ravens game being tight through 2.5 quarters, I'd say. But no, I mean, Saturday night was I think I was using the word, it was a doozy. What a battle. The more I reflected it, I'll start off by saying this, that I think the Niners needed that challenge, and it's a playoff game. I mean, I don't think it should be easy. The Ravens made it look easy against the Texans, but I don't think that it should be easy. You know, you're in the divisional round. Yeah, you're the number one seed. You're expected to kind of run the table in the NFC, but I think any opponent's going to bring a challenge. And as much as I don't like saying it, credit to the Green Bay Packers for having I thought, tremendous game plan. Just didn't execute all the way, thanks to their kicker, largely, and Jordan Love's late mistakes. But I mean, they had the Niners on on the ropes. I definitely felt like, you know, luckily the Niners took advantage of the mistakes and made the big plays in crunch time, like you alluded to in your write up that you just sent out earlier.
Thanks for the plug.
But yeah, they're but the Packers definitely made an argument that they could have deserved to move on as well. They played a hell of a game. So I'm just a win is a win. I'm just glad they eked it out in one way or another when it was a struggle most of the game, and they just kept it within striking distance. So, but I was very nervous, to say the least.
Bryce, you have similar observations, maybe?
Absolutely, man. You know, I feel like the Niners fan base, first of all, is a great fan base to be a part of. I feel like we give credit to the teams that we face. And at the end of the day, we kind of beat ourselves up if it's not something that goes our way, just penalty calls or anything. But shout out to the Green Bay Packers to putting up a good fight. You know, they're a young team. Like, if you look at the statistics in terms of like age, like I'm pretty sure like a good chunk of their guys are under 25. And that's pretty impressive coming on a year that's supposed to be a rebuild year, and a year that Aaron Rodgers leaves, leaves with his whole crew, and now Matt LaFleur has to come up with a whole new game plan around the players that he's got. Aaron Jones, who's been there for a while, no more Devontae Adams, and come out into Niners territory and keep it close like that. Lead for most of the game, as Joseph said. Credit to the kicker, but for missing. But honestly, I think Jordan Love played a good three quarters, 3.5 quarters of football. Could be argued very good. Could be even argued a little bit better than Brock Purdy. Just also seeing in terms of I think elements play a huge part in the game. You take a look at where the Packers practice, right, all the way up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I mean, Dom, you're out there in the Midwest, so how kind of the weather can be, especially they practice in open stadiums. I mean, for God's sake, I mean that's part of their culture, right? And then you come to sunny California, right? You compare us to how ready we are to handle a wet ball. Literally, I think it was like half of the talk in the first quarter, the first half, and seeing if Purdy needed a glove or anything like that. Elements play a huge part into that. But I think a lot of noticeable things. I think one of my quick takeaway, and we'll get into it later, is if we're gonna have Debo or not. The Niners are gonna have Debo.
Yeah, huge question.
Everybody's question, huge question around Kyle Shanahan's play calling. In terms of what he's trying to set up. And I think the Niners came back in a very Niner way, kind of sticking to what works. They finally figured it out kind of toward the third and fourth quarter, a little bit late, had his fans kind of scared. But we got to witness some greatness on that game-winning drive. So.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen a drive like that and well executed. I think probably since I'm probably omitting a lot of the drives they've had to really go and win the game. I mean, that Saints game that all those years ago with Jimmy G. I mean, I think that was the last true fourth quarter drive to go ahead and put things away. I'm sure there's been others that I'm totally blanking on, but that was the last one I remember that stood out. Like, hey, they actually did it. They needed a touchdown. Or they needed a field goal at that point, but they needed a drive like that. They've been playing kind of crappy all game. At least maybe the defense was, not so much the offense in that game. But we got that here, and it was a miracle that they stayed within that one score at the end. I felt like, because it really could have got away from them a couple times there late third quarter, fourth quarter, where they didn't execute, they didn't finish drives. But I have a lot of thoughts. I watched the film today, as I mentioned. Glad you brought up the weather, because that's been irking me. It's been really irking me. I know weather exists. I live in the Midwest now. I don't know how people live out here and enjoy it. I think they just lie to themselves, because it's kind of terrible most of the time, especially when it's 4 below for a good couple days. That was tough. But I was just so perplexed how a home team in their own stadium can slip. So, I mean, the Packers slipped too. I know they made some, they definitely had guys on skates a few times, but it seemed to be more of an impact. It seemed to have more of an impact on the 49ers out there on the field, and they had to change their cleats at halftime. They had to change their cleats in the middle of the game. Purdy started with the gloves and took the glove off. It just felt like they weren't prepared for, and it wasn't, from my understanding, wasn't dumping rain there. I mean, my dad went, he was telling us about it. It wasn't dumping rain. It was a good amount of rain. It was wet, but they just didn't seem prepared for it. I get the right cleats, figure out your game plan. I know they don't practice on the Levi Stadium turf, and that maybe had something to do with it, but it just felt like that shouldn't happen when you're the home team and the other team's coming in. They had the same elements, and it felt like that affected your throwing. It affected the rest of the defense and slipping up and missing tackles and letting receivers run away from them. I think that was a huge part of this game. So I don't know. I think initially after the game, I was immediately very relieved that they won. I was a nervous wreck the entire time. But I think in the hours after, I just felt so, I think, down. I was just like, how could they play that bad? Like, maybe they are a flawed team. And then the more I watched the tape today, the more I felt like I guess it just felt like there's a couple key fluke things that happened Obviously, again, credit to the Packers. I think they're a really tough team. They're going to be good for a long time. Jordan Love is an impressive quarterback. He ended up not playing well in the end, but he made a lot of the plays in the beginning and made the throws he needed to. But there were so many slips in that first quarter and those first couple drives that the Packers had, where if had the Niners stayed on their feet, I think Charvarius Ward slipped on an out route. Ambry Thomas or I think it might have been Lenore slipped while trying to make a tackle in the backfield, and he would have had him, but he just slipped and didn't get there. There were a couple of those just kind of fluky plays that allowed the Packers to get down the field. Then there was the penalties on the back end. Gibson had a PI that it was pretty close, but obviously Ambry had a tough day and got a couple PIs on the outside, but just felt like those penalties, a lot of those slips, and then just giving up those things on key third downs. Like had they made one of the two of those plays in the beginning, it felt like maybe things would have been a little bit easier, but I think things just didn't go their way. And just kind of snowballed from there and just became a lot tougher of a game because of all those, because of the weather and all those extra situations that I guess they didn't prepare for. So I was just pissed. I'm like, you can't let the weather dictate how you play that bad. I just felt like that they weren't prepared for that.
Absolutely, man. I think I definitely agree. I think as soon as I saw the rain and I saw the matchup, I was like, the only difference is the Packers are used to playing in like terrible weather. Like Lambeau Field, anytime I watch a
Yeah.
Packers game, good chance that it's going to be raining or snowing even, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it made me nervous. It made, and like you said, like, a win's a win.
Yeah.
But something about the game didn't have me feeling satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
It does put you into a little bit of questioning, and confidence level in terms of, especially that fine line of after having 2 weeks worth of rest, right? Rest versus rustiness. How much was that rustiness? And we're just gonna have to see this coming Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, and to be clear, I didn't think this was going to be an easy win by any means. I think I said it on the podcast last week. It was like they got to take this game seriously. The Packers, when you put up that performance anywhere, I don't care if it was Dallas, they've shown to be a pretty good team, at least in the regular season. But, I don't think the Niners took them lightly. So I don't know. I didn't think initially watching it that the Niners just weren't motivated or, it's the playoffs. Of course they're motivated or that they took them lightly. I think just, some fluke plays happened. They weren't prepared for the weather. I think that was a lot of the reasons why things kind of started out that way and they looked the way they did. On the offensive side of the ball for Green Bay, I think they really blocked extremely well. Their receivers, their tight ends, they have a really good O-line, even though they're super young. They blocked exceptionally well. They get out on the edges on you, and they targeted Chase Young on his edge. They did a
100%.
lot of pin and pulls, a lot of receivers or tight ends going down to block the edge, pinning him in, and then they're pulling tackles and other tight ends around on the edges and getting after our defensive backs. Those were the plays that killed us the most.
That was LaFleur's
Because
plan.
yeah, and I think for a lot of this game he outcoached Kyle Shanahan. I think in the end Shanahan made the adjustments at least in the last drive, and I think Wilkes made some adjustments defensively in the second half. But those pin and pulls were killing them. It wasn't so much between the tackles that they were really gashing him. It was really those outside runs. Obviously, Aaron Jones has his biggest runs on those outside kind of swings, but a lot of pin and pulls. So I mean, if I'm the Lions, they do that pretty well. They can get guys to block down on DNs. So the DNs are going to have to get coached up this week, and they're going to have to figure out a way to counteract that because that's how teams are going to start attacking them. And then you had I don't know. So there was the outside runs and the pins and pulls. It was Green Bay really committing to blocking down the field. And then on the offensive side of the ball for the Niners, the Packer defense was committed to taking away that intermediate part of the field. You saw Savage jump that should have been a pick. It should have honestly been a pick six if he catches that. It could have been that Purdy threw early in the game, but they were committed to they dropped their linebackers and those middle safeties right in the 15 to 20 yard area and took away those deep over routes. They said, we're not going to let those beat us. They sat back, but that gave Brock and that gave the offense so much space in the flats, in the short middle to dump throws down to. And it just took him a long time to realize that I said, Joseph, I texted you all today. I'm like, if Brock just checked down and just was decisive on his checkdowns, throughout the whole game, he could have passed for 300 yards and he wouldn't have had to throw a pass longer than 10 yards down the field, because that would have been how they could have moved the ball early. So I think they just were surprised by how much the Packers sat back, really took away that middle area of the field, deeper middle area of the field, and they just didn't want to check down at least immediately. I think Brock, honestly, the more I looked at the tape, it wasn't so much of him. I don't think he really looked frazzled. I think the wet of the ball being wet, definitely, I think, affected some of his throws. But I think it really was him trying to make a play, and he wants to throw the ball deeper downfield. He doesn't want to just check it down and be conservative that way. But in this game, he kind of needed to, because they were taking away that so much. And by the time he realized that he needed to go to checkdowns, they'd be able to come and make the tackle, or that the rush would get to him right in the front of his face, and it would affect some of his throws. So I think, and that's finally something they adjusted with. They got the ball out quick. He was decisive on that final drive, and they were able to get in the end zone. I think they realized it really too late. But those are the things that kind of stood out to me looking at the tape more. And I think, I don't know, I'm a little more encouraged just knowing that I don't think it was any nerves or Brock living up to the moment. I think it was just something that they collectively just didn't do and didn't realize until later in the game. And I think it kind of changed the way that they played. So I don't know. Any other observations or things that you wanna put in there? I guess I think we noted this last week, Joseph. Their kicker missed more kicks than Moody did this year. He certainly missed a lot of extra points, so that definitely came into play, which I wasn't super surprised at.
Yeah, I think that was a huge, and even though Moody got his kick blocked, I mean, he still made that 52-yarder.
Yeah, it was
That
big.
was impressive. And that's never easy in any kind of weather. I don't care what it is. But yeah, I think I said it when I was texting you guys during the game that I think the turning point that the Packers really didn't take advantage of jumping on was the first couple drives. The
Yeah,
Packers go all the way down the field, take like 7 minutes off the clock. We hold them to 3 points. Ward with a great breakup on Romeo Dobbs that would have been a touchdown. And then right after that, like you said, I think it was that next drive, the Niners, that Savage should have had a pick six that he dropped. And then the drive after that for the Packers, they go down and get stopped on fourth down.
yep.
Yes, people want to question on the spot of the ball.
He was short. He was so short. I was telling all the Packer fans in the bar,
were a
like, he
little
didn't make
bit
it.
questionable on ball spotting the whole night, but I do believe the helmet got to the first down marker, but not the ball.
I think that one was the right
In
call.
my
All the
opinion.
other ones were a little. I mean,
But
they fixed a lot of them
regardless-
too. Yeah, at the end.
Regardless, right there.
Yeah.
It's still only 3-0. And then the Niners, I think, finally score on that long throw to Kittle right after that. That to me was just, I think just Dad always preaches it too. Just watching enough football games, if you don't pounce on a team and capitalize on that stuff, you leave opportunities for the team to come back. And I really think, who's to say if they would have won or not? I really think the Packers could have put a lot more pressure if they had capitalized on those opportunities. It could have been, it could have been 10, 13, nothing. Instead, it was 3-0. And the Niners were able to get the lead after that. So that was the turning point to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then 7-6, and the Niners had the field goal not blocked, gotten blocked, or Moody hits a better ball there. What was it, like a 45-yarder or something like that? He's hit those routinely. He's actually really good from 40 yards this year. They could have had a 10-6 lead at halftime. I'm like, the Niners have had the ball 3 times. They've barely had the ball in terms of time possession. I'm like, they could have been just up 4. So I was pretty encouraged at halftime. I was like, they've played like crap, and they're still they're up 4. But they're up 1, obviously. So I was still encouraged by what they had at halftime. It's just how they came out in the third quarter. I know people want to kill Kyle Shanahan for getting super conservative in that last drive to get to that blocked field goal. But I mean, that's just who he is. I don't think some people are saying on different podcasts I've listened to and other people that it was somehow Kyle like not trusting Brock. I think he had a lot of trust in Brock as evidenced by all the dropbacks that he had in this game. It's just Kyle wanting to stick to that, winning on the end of the first half and winning in the second half and doubling up opponents. He just doesn't want to give Green Bay extra possessions. I thought it was right. I think he's correct in doing that. Could they have been a little more aggressive in getting down the field a little farther? Yes, but in the end, they just didn't get the third down that they needed, and had they got it, they would have wound some more time off the clock and maybe got a better field goal try or at least got in the end zone. So I think they just didn't execute in the end, but I think the logic and the thinking there is still correct. And obviously they came out and had a 3-and-out in the second half, gave the ball to Juwan Jennings out of the backfield, which was bizarre. And we got a Purdy read option, which is hilarious too. So just like crazy stuff, I guess, when Debo gets hurt. And again, that's another huge factor in this one. I know you mentioned it, Bryce, that it's going to be big depending on if he gets healthy for next week. And seems like it's 50-50. I don't see a way where he doesn't at least suit up for it. But I think that and Kyle's talked about it, that it had a big impact on his play calling and the way that they scripted the rest of the game, because they had a lot of game plan revolving around Debo.
Yeah, man. Do you wanna let that lead into our
Yeah,
conversation about Debo himself? I
sure.
think
Please.
and I do want to actually go back really quick, just to say I totally agree with you. I love Shanahan. I think he's been probably the best coach that we've had. Oh man, in a slew of coaches since Jim Harbaugh. I mean, we went through hell. But he does draw that fine line between playing to win and playing not to lose.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big thing. And now that with, Debo being 50-50, it puts a little bit of a thorn in his kind of plan and thorn in his side, if you will. Especially, yeah, like you mentioned that Jawan Jennings 1st and 10 will hand off. I was like, dude, what is this? That was probably the worst play call that I saw all game. I was like, I love Jawan. Third and Jawan lives on in my heart. He's basically a bigger, bulkier Kendrick Bourne throwing back to 2019. If you kind of go with it, he can block. Shout out to KB. He's doing his thing in New England. But I think with Debo out, and I think we've been in this situation before. I think Debo was questionable earlier in the season against the Cardinals, right? And he came back that game. Didn't really, make too much of an impact. Was there as a decoy. Debo opens up the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you said, I don't really see Debo not suiting up to play. If not, I think it's something that they're obviously keeping in house to themselves before game day. And the script plan will obviously be prepared early on for that. I think Kyle already has the game plan with Debo in, but now he's just got to put that extra effort in, knowing that his star wide receiver is injured, and making winning this game. If we win this game, puts him in also a troublesome spot of how much rest time can I give Debo before if we make it past. But again, live in the moment, got to face a tough offense that's got to probably try and put up a good amount of points. I mean, we've seen the shootouts that the Lions have played this season, and they're a good team. And some people will argue America's team at this point.
Yeah, the Niners are villains. We're playing villains right now.
It's kind of weird being the villain in this game. But yeah, with Debo out, I think players are going to have to step up. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Chris Conley's name to be called.
My guy.
Called upon.
Love Chris.
And I was like, I don't think I've heard that guy since he was on the Jaguars, man. And even just watching Brock throw early on in his cadence, wet ball, his wide receivers made plays. I mean, you watch the flat route to Ayuk right at his ankles. Ayuk made that catch.
Yeah, that catch was a hell of a play.
That ball up to Juwan, I mean, you could argue that's 50-50. That's teammate effort right there, man. That's Jennings going up and being the bigger man and making the play. So it's I feel like with Debo out, it's we're gonna have to kind of maybe even stick to the run game. That front is a little bit tougher than Green Bay, I would like to say.
Yeah.
But when you got the best running back in the league, you got to use them. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. I don't know what your thoughts are, Joseph, on Mr. Snatch and Chains being out. or potentially being out.
DJ Gardner Johnson.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, especially with like Debo, I think sometimes I don't know if I want to say an advantage or disadvantage for like the play calling because, like you said, Kyle can prepare for with and without Debo. Um, so at least he has that in the back of his mind. I would be, to be honest with you, I know he's probably hurting, um, but I would be pretty shocked if he doesn't suit up. Whether it's even just for a lot of plays for decoy or anything like that, I would be. I just feel like the stake is too big. I think Devo's gonna play, and I think there are plenty of other weapons. You know, I think that the Packers had a good game plan that I'm sure the Lions will want to mimic. Like Dominic said, Brock's going to have to be more patient. I personally think I think that the Lions D line is tough. I'm really interested to see how their linebackers and DBs are going to play. I personally don't think they're as strong as the Packers defensively like that. However, the Lions' offense, I think, is a lot tougher to defend. And Jared Goff's playing really well. They have a good running game. If they're smart and they're copying the Packers, Dominic is right. Those pitches to Montgomery and Gibbs are gonna be a thing to watch. Corners are gonna have to come up and make tackles. I thought Lenore tackled really well of all the DBs on Saturday against the Packers. Credit to him. I think he was balling out. So I think that it's going to be really physical. The Lions want to play a physical game. Not that I didn't think the Packers played that way too. I think more of it was a LaFleur and Shanahan time possession game too, and they both want to run the ball and really control the clock. Dan Campbell is a lot more aggressive, and hopefully we can exploit that. And I really think, yeah, they're going to want to they're going to try to out physical the Niners. I think it's going to be a very, I think it's going to be a really good test for the Niners because I think the Niners kind of want to be that bully to other teams. So do the Lions. So
Yeah.
I think they have a great offensive line and a good defensive line. And I think as much as you say about these quarterbacks, which is the most important position in the sport, I do agree with that. And these other star players, I mean, I don't think you're a good team without an O line and a D line, and both these teams have that. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be potentially just, it's going to be a bruising battle. That's what I'm
Yeah,
anticipating.
yeah, I don't disagree. I guess we are diving headfirst into this preview. Get the Lions coming to Levi Stadium. They're coming to the Bay Area for their first NFC Conference Championship in well, I don't know how many years it is. I'm not good at math. Was that 32 years or so? Since 1992, January 92 was the last time they were in the NFC Championship game. I think that was their only trip to the NFC Championship game as a franchise. I think before that, it was before the Super Bowl era when they went to some NFL championships. So Lions are in unfamiliar territory, or at least Lions fans are in territory that they haven't seen in many, many years. They beat the Bucks last week. Baker Mayfield came in there. He threw a ton, but the Bucks don't really run the ball very well. So I think it'll be a very different game than the one we saw at Ford Field last weekend. So this is an intriguing matchup. Like you said, I know you talked about the Lions and their run defense. They are top in a lot of categories. I was looking at this doing the prep here. They have the number 2 passing off. I was looking at the offense. They're number 5 rushing offense on the pass side, or on the offensive side. They're number 2 passing offense. The number 3 in net yards for pass attempt. I mean, they have an explosive offense, but they also have a defense that is really stingy against the run, as you said. Number 3 in yards per rush allowed. Number 2 in total yards allowed on the running side. But I think part of that is they've gotten up and gotten big leads in a lot of games this year. So a lot of teams haven't had the patience or haven't had the ability to really lean on that running game. I think the Niners can, obviously Kyle Shanahan has a good rushing outfit in this squad that he has in the offense. I think they can really run the ball. Again, what I said and what we said last week, I thought they were going to lean on the run a little bit more against Green Bay. Again, Green Bay sold out against the run. I think the game plan is going to be similar for the Lions. They're going to try to stop the run for the Niners. So I think it's going to be a lot on Purdy to get the ball out quick, get the ball out to the playmakers and let him go. If it's anything similar to the Packers game plan, I think he'll have to take some checkdowns and let the playmakers run in space, which I'm confident in. They can do that and they can ride the ball. So, but the Lions did put a lot of investment in their defensive line. I think they're number one in pressure rate. Highest pressure rate in the NFL this year. So they get after the quarterback at a really effective way. So that's going to be a challenge for the offensive line on that side of the ball. And then the defense is going to have to stop their run. They have Montgomery who can really go between the tackles and break one off there. And they have Gibbs who can get outside and really, he's explosive, he's fast. So they're going to have their hands full trying to stop that run. And I think that's going to be something the Lions, as much good as Jared Goff has done and how well he's playing recently, they still are a run first team. And that's what Dan Campbell wants to do. So that's going to be priority number one. One thing that I think the Niners did well, and I'll pause real quick to plug in for cheapseats.substack.com. That's the homepage for this podcast and for all the things that I've put out there for the cheap seats. Go to that page, subscribe. But what I did today is kind of do a write-up on all the third down plays that the Niners had and that were pivotal to the victory last week. They're 10 of 16 on third downs. That was the most third downs they've faced in a game since week 3 against the Giants this year. It's the most they've converted, 10 this year. So they were money on third downs. They did it in the downs that mattered. I think that's going to give them confidence going into next week, saying that we can still get things done. I think they were the fourth highest third down conversion rate in the league this year. So I think that's on their side. It's higher than the other teams that are in the tournament remaining with them. So, if things don't go super well in the running game on first or second down, they still have the team that can, convert on those third downs. But again, they can't be like last week where it's ineffective first downs, ineffective second downs, getting in those third long situations, and then relying on passes to get completed over the middle and the offensive line holding up, especially against a unit that's a little bit better than this Packers unit is. So they need to be a little more clear in their game plan. And hopefully, again, the status of Deebo Samuel, if they know, they'll have they'll be better prepared for that, because it clearly was that Kyle thought Deebo was going to be a big part of that game plan, which, again, I think that made a huge impact on how close this game ended up being, talking about the one last week. So yeah, there's a lot to look at there. But the one thing I'll leave you with, guys, before I'll pass it off to you to give me any more insight here, but I do have the splits for Jared Goff home versus road this year. They're pretty interesting because I'm watching this Lions team and I'm watching them, how well they're playing down the stretch here. They have a lot of home games. They have a lot of indoor games. But I sat in the stands in Soldier Field this year in Chicago, and I watched the Bears kick the shit out of the Lions. And I'm like, this is the team that might get a 1 seed, is competing for the 1 seed in the NFC. So that gives me pause. Like, I've seen this team struggle, and the Bears are a good defensive team. They really turned it on at the end of the season, but they're kind of a mess everywhere else. So that gives me a little bit more. It's like, if you get Jared Goff outside, obviously it was much colder in Chicago that day. I think it was around 30 degrees. It's going to be around 70 in Santa Clara probably. So that's going to be different. But so Goff at home this year, now it's been 10 games, so 8 regular season games, 2 postseason, 71% completion, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, 108.7 passer rating. He's taken 17 sacks, 8 yards per attempt, 8.06, 280 yards per game. So it's a pretty good home stats, pretty good home performance this season. On the road, 9 games, and he's played in a lot of different places. He's played in Kansas City, Green Bay, obviously Minnesota and Chicago. They're in division there, but they played in Tampa, they played in Baltimore, played indoors in LA, they played indoors in Dallas as well. They played indoors in New Orleans. They played indoors a lot of places. So he's had his ideal conditions. But on the road, he's in the 9 games for Goff. He's 64.8% completion. So the completion rate drops off by about 6 percentage points there. 11 touchdowns to 6 picks. 89.4% passer rating. He's taken 18 sacks, so about the same. The yards per attempt drops down to about 7.1, and he's thrown about 260 yards per game. So not super lower, but I mean, it's a noticeable drop on the road, that he hasn't thrown nearly as many touchdowns. He hasn't nearly been as effective. So I wonder how that's going to come into play. I think Levi's is going to be rocking as it always is. But if the weather's, like it was last week, which I don't know if it will, but I just got to wonder how it's going to affect Jared Goff. I don't know how confident you guys are in Goff, and I don't know how much you've watched of him this season. But what are your thoughts on kind of that quarterback matchup, I guess?
I think watching Jared Goff, because I think the Lions are great. I think Jared Goff is good. I think the trade between him and Matt Stafford could go down as the most even trade in quarterback history. I feel like they're very similar calibers. That's a very interesting stat that you pull up. Home versus hey, you see that little bit of a drop off. When I think of Jared Goff, you know, and it's interesting to see the stats too. I think he's 3-6 against the Niners
Yeah.
as just Jared Goff versus the 49ers. We we love Jared Goff. We've had great memories of knocking him out, but now he's on this team with a little bit more beef to
Yeah.
him. Allows Jared Goff to get out the ball, make those quick plays. He's got two running backs. I think that's a huge thing that we gotta take into account for. That allowed to kind of open up the game as well for Jared Goff in the passing game. When you have running backs like David Montgomery and Jamar Gibbs, right? Those two feed off of each other, right? They get to take rest breaks after a couple of runs.
Keeps them
Like
fresh.
Christian, exactly, keep those legs fresh. It's not like we're sending Elijah Mitchell out into the field
Yeah.
for CMC, every two plays, right? And that opens up, makes you worry about the run a little bit more. Jared Goff has time then, on a option to throw to his receivers who are also very explosive. I mean, you got the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown over there, Josh Reynolds, speedster as well, Jameson Williams,
Yep.
speedster. You take a look at these guys, so I think just like, the 49ers, they have a good amount of weapons. What is the 49ers going to need to do on defensively to win the game is less mistakes. And I think when you get to playoff time, that's basically how you win games. It's the team who makes the least amount of mistakes. And we're just going to see how the 49ers adjust to the game plan and, seeing how that offense runs in our territory. But let's just hope that Jared Goff sticks to his statistics that game. The 49ers faithful is out there making some noise, having them have a little bit of trouble of getting the plays off, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think it's significant enough where that there is some sort of change when he's playing on the road. So I think that's going to be a factor. And Joseph, I know I'll let you go on this, but I know that the Lions back end is number 27 in total yards per play allowed. They're near the bottom in every pass defense category. So that's really just the weakness on this team is, regardless of the names that they have, Sutton, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he, I know Gardner-Johnson was hurt for a lot of, a good amount of weeks coming in before this playoff game. And now with him back, maybe that helps bolster the back end a little bit because he's definitely still got some talent. But that's clearly the weakness on this team. And it's something that I think the Niners can exploit because I think they run really nice concepts in the back end and they can, take advantage of linebackers that maybe aren't that great in coverage.
Yeah, and I thought a huge. I was looking it up too because Dad texted about it earlier. I think a big stat that you kind of noticed too about like, especially what Bryce was saying about, you know, the team who makes the least amount of mistakes versus makes more mistakes. The Niners are what I think the top 5, top 10 in tackling. The Lions are like bottom 5.
Yeah.
They have some of the most missed tackles, and I think that's a really, just hearing that stat and then looking it up, like just such an interesting stat. And you think about a team like the eye test, like the Eagles down the stretch that just missed so many tackles on their defense. you see the similarities a little bit with the Lions, and I thought it's really going to be interesting because I think, especially watching these last couple of years of football, I didn't think that this stat was so big as well. Explosive plays, like you said.
Yeah.
I think the Lions clearly have been primed to have explosive plays on their offense. Niners are, I think, top 5, top 3 in that category as well. You also brought up the good stats of third down percentage, red zone percentage is huge, but the Niners have been on the top of the league of explosive plays. The Packers did a pretty nice job of that, of not having those explosive plays happen as much. I'm curious to see how the Lions are going to do that. I think they're very susceptible. And I think it kind of goes both ways, because I think the Lions, with those missed tackles, I really want to actually look up what their red zone defense is. I don't know if you have those stats on it, Dominic. Really curious, because I know how good our red zone offense is. But I got to say, as much as people are ripping on the Niners defense last week, I got to give them credit a little bit, because they had a very bend but don't break mentality. And they held the Packers to field goals, or stopping possessions when they needed to. So I'm hoping that maybe the Niners give up the yards, but don't give up necessarily the points to Lions. So I'm really interested to see that. But you do have very explosive offenses. But I just feel like giving the edge to the Niners, because I trust our defense more than I trust theirs, and in terms of especially giving up yards and points and everything. That's kind of my take on that.
No, I'm with you there. I'm trying to see if I can get any red zone stats right here.
That's what I'm
Oh yeah,
interested
yeah,
in.
red zone. Here we go. Red zone percentage. Ooh, they're actually near the top.
Okay.
Let's see, percent of the time the team reaches the red zone. Oh, never mind. Actually, they're near the bottom, I would say. That's the other way around. So they have a near the bottom. They're fourth to last in red zone percentage in terms of the defense. They give up a touchdown 66% of the time when the
We got to take advantage
opposing
of that.
offense reaches the end zone. I think the
Jeez.
Niners are middle of the pack in red zone defense, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
like you said, the red
I
zone
know we're
offense
top
is
in red zone offense.
yeah
Yeah.
is pretty damn good. So that's
Yeah.
a good point that could swing things if the Niners can convert and get 6 points every time they're down instead of 3. That's going to be big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bryce,
100%.
any additional thoughts on this one that you're looking for, and maybe we can just go on real quick to the AFC Championship and make a mention there.
I want to see him set the edge, and I want special teams to play better.
Yeah, special teams got to play better. You can't give up long kickoff returns like that. That was a shame to see.
I think my only concern is that when I was watching the Packers game, anytime third down came up while we were on defense, I was like, somehow they might just pick on Thomas,
Yeah.
you know? And I think when a young player like that has a game like that, it can either break his confidence or build it. And hopefully out of that, Thomas stays a little bit more disciplined, makes a little bit better reads. Again, rest versus rust. Always a conversation after that 2 week. But yeah, man, I think, one, mistakes like we were talking. Joe just brought up special teams. You echoed special teams, right? That's such a big component of the game. Block field goals, missed tackles, right? Letting them drive all the way down, almost letting the Niners get fumbled. I mean, hey, that's special teams for you. Literally, special teams is the time it can be anybody's game at that point, right? One missed tackle changes the game. And I think one of the interesting things that I want to see from the Niners is a little bit more, gusto to get to the quarterback. I think that's the only way I can put it. We have such big names, man. If you look at our front four, shoot, you got Bosa, you've got Hargrave, who we spend a lot of money on. We have Armstead back now, and now we got Chase Young. You got the two Ohio State brothers, that everybody feared for. And I think since that time, I would love to see the statistics on that. And I know Bosa is not having, his best year, obviously coming off of his Defensive Player of the Year season last season. But that could be also up to Wilkes. not seeing as many blitzes as we're kind of used to with the Niners, right? Now that Hufang is out, now we got to play a little bit more conservative. I think Wilson, Shanahan play on a little bit more of the conservative end. But I'm interested to see if the Niners can come out with a little bit more aggression against this Lions offense and this Lions defense, because like you said in the beginning, Dom, it's going to be a bruising battle.
Yeah.
For sure. Dan Campbell himself, his personality screams everything as a bruiser. I mean, Detroit right now as a whole is, underdogs, and it's gonna be a sure fight to the finish. So we'll see how it plays out.
Detroit's had it too good for too long. I'm gonna zig on this one. I think Michigan already won a national championship for them. I know it's not Detroit, but that's right nearby. It's all right. They've won enough this year. I think the Bay Area needs this a little more right now. The Niner fans definitely need it a little bit more. That's all I'm saying. I think they're high on the horse. They need to. It's all right. It's our time. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's true. They did sacrifice the Pistons season though.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the Wingstop workers in Detroit.
I do like the point that Bryce brought up about getting pressure on Goff. I think we could. I think Wilkes could try to get some blitzes in there. He's not as mobile as Jordan Love.
Yeah, they had
a really interesting point.
Yeah, they've played a lot of quarterbacks that are a little more dynamic lately, that are able to get out of the pocket and extend things a little more. I mean, Goff can do that, but he's definitely more of a if he's in the pocket, if you can surround him, he's not really going to go much of anywhere. So that's going to be big. I mean, yeah, obviously the pass rush is always going to be a big part of the game. I don't think they really had it. They don't think they had a sack on Jordan Love, right? That I could remember.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, I mean that's big there. I mean they need to. I mean they got some pressure for sure. They definitely got in his face a bunch of times in some passes, but we got to get able to get home. Jonah Jackson, the Lions starting guard, I don't think he's going to be playing. He got hurt last game. Ragnall's banged up. Their center. I mean, just they have some injuries there. They have some weaknesses. I think especially on the interior. Again, I think I might have said this last week, but I don't know. Armstead being back, I think it definitely helped some. Especially in the interior run game, didn't help much on the outside runs, which we saw. But I think he definitely, looking at the tape, he definitely was back to himself in terms of getting pressure from the middle, and just being a force there. I think Kinlaw had a good game, Hargrave too. So I mean, they need those guys in the interior to step up in the run game and then put some pressure right in the doorstep of Jared Goff. So I think it's the similar keys to the every game for the 49ers is that they need to win the trenches. But I think especially for this one, given the deficiencies that the Lions have in the back end, it's going to be partly through the air as well. So why don't we talk about the AFC side to wrap this thing up before we get to Bryce's sports memories? I don't want to go skip over those, but we got an interesting. I mean, not really interesting. I mean, this is kind of just two juggernauts really going at each other. We got Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. They handle the Houston Texans in the second half. It was a 10-10 game, but the Texans never really did anything on offense to really scare you. They had a kick return. I think it was a punt return actually, for a touchdown that made it 10-10. And then the Ravens kind of played their game and won pretty handily. But then you see the Chiefs, as I said last week, I don't trust Sean McDermott. I didn't trust the Bills to win that kind of game where every little thing is going to get scrutinized, where the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes make you play an A+ game to beat them because they just take advantage. And even the Chiefs, Hardman fumbles through the end zone and gives them an extra possession. Gives the Bills an extra possession after Sean McDermott called that insane fake punt deep in their own end to DeMar Hamlin. Which I know if it worked, obviously, people would be singing his praises, but just to make that kind of gamble, it just shows I guess he didn't trust his defense to get a stop. And he thought his offense needed an extra possession, which they ended up getting. But even with all that happening, the Bills still couldn't get it done with the Chiefs not playing. They played a near perfect game. They obviously made some of those key mistakes and gave the Bills some extra possessions, but it was just, I guess, I don't know. I'm right again. I just feel like I just trusted Andy Reid and the Chiefs to cut it out because I felt like it was going to be that. It wasn't as low scoring as I thought it was going to be, but I felt it was going to be a close, kind of gutted out game where running the ball was a big part of it. And it came down to who who made that crucial mistake, who had that missed kick, who had that erroneous fake punt call. And that's what it came down to. And the Chiefs they've just been there. They have a quarterback who's been there. They have a coach who's been there, and they excel in those kind of games, even though they haven't had a great regular season. So we got the Chiefs, we got Mahomes, and we got them going to Baltimore on the road. First time the Ravens have hosted an AFC Championship game of all these years that they've been there. So M&T Bank will be rocking. It was a pretty crazy atmosphere there against Houston last weekend. So how do you see this one going down, fellas? How do you see this one going down? Because I think you just got two teams that are really playing their best ball kind of when they need it. And two quarterbacks who are at the top of the league. Obviously, Mahomes won a few MVPs. Lamar's going to get his second this year, it seems like. What do you make of this one?
I think it's going to be a great matchup there. I think I know the Chiefs aren't as strong, but you just can't count them out in either way. And they're I think their defense is gonna, because the Ravens kind of play that kind of game. At least from the eye test, I don't feel like the Ravens offense is very explosive. It's efficient and it's a very tough offense. But I don't think they have really the explosive plays. The receivers on both teams are very interesting to say the least. But I think the Chiefs can run the ball this year, and they have the best quarterback in football. So I think, I don't know. I think people are leaning more toward the Ravens. All I'm going to say to them is just don't feel comfortable playing the Chiefs. I don't care where you're at. They're gonna. I think the Chiefs will give them a really good game. I could see this being a close battle. Obviously, that's going to be a great atmosphere in Baltimore and everything. But like you said, Dominic, I think the Chiefs are showing right now during this stretch. They kind of have that it factor. So yeah, Baltimore needs to be ready.
Yeah, Mahomes has that it factor. I'm gonna take a second just to sing his praises. I know, people kind of get off of him because he had a lackluster regular season to his standards, and we know a lot of that had to do with the cast that's around him this year that really isn't up to the par that he usually plays with in terms of the receiving core. But you saw Kelsey emerge again as his favorite target. He was enormous in that game in Buffalo last weekend. So he's getting that guy back to kind of full strength, I guess. And then, I joke because I wanted to see Kadarius Toney in that game so bad. It felt like that was a game that needed Kadarius Toney, just the chaos. But he was inactive, probably smartly by the Chiefs. But 17th postseason start this will be for Patrick Mahomes. He's 13-3 in the playoffs. He's appeared in the AFC title game every year. He's been a starter all 6 years. His playoff numbers: 285 yards per game, 67% completion rate, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 106.7 passer rating, 5 rushing touchdowns. Just dominance in the postseason. And just reading all that and doing a dive on that just made me so sick knowing that the Niners had 2 interceptions off him in that Super Bowl and had them where they wanted them, and they still couldn't do it because that just made it. He doesn't have performances like that in the postseason.
Yeah.
2 of his 7 interceptions in the postseason in 16 games have come against the Niners, and they couldn't get it done. But Patrick Mahomes, man, he just turns it on. People talking about players and teams flipping the switch. He has an actual switch that he flips in the postseason. The regular season is just him trying out different things that he thinks are cool. Andy Reid calls some cool plays that maybe they can use in the postseason, but when they get there, they really turn it on, it seems like. So I don't know. I'm not going to count them out on this one.
Dude, yeah, absolutely not. I think one of the things people don't realize is people were wondering what Patrick Mahomes was going to do without Tyreek Hill. And now we're watching him in the postseason with the Chiefs, and the Miami Dolphins are in Cancun right now. Yeah. So, what more can you say about Patrick Mahomes, man? He's probably right now the best quarterback in the league. That's a conversation for debate with Lamar coming up with his MVP. But you take a look at their offensive weapons, right? You got Kelsey, and then behind Kelsey, you got Pacheco, who runs the ball like a madman anytime he runs. It's the most entertaining thing I've ever seen in my life. You got Rashi Rice coming off of a great rookie season. Um, and but who's making those big plays really? It's Patrick Mahomes and then Travis Kelce probably a little bit second, right?
Yeah.
Andy Reid's got some great play calling, like you said. And then we look on the other side. We got Lamar Jackson, same thing. Zay Flowers probably equal to Rashee Rice on the other side. Again, great rookie season. You got a good vet in Odell Beckham Jr. I'm just surprised with all the injuries in that Ravens backfield, which seems to be cursed at this point.
Yeah.
Hope Keaton Mitchell and J.K. Dobbins are having a good rehab. But when you got legs like Lamar's, do you need a running back? I don't know at this point, man. That man is insane on the ground, and I think that's what really is going to separate, and confuse the Chiefs' defense. Is Lamar going to throw it because we've seen that he can sling that ball, or is he going to run it because we know that he can run for a touchdown, 50 yards, in fact. So what's going to come down to in this game, I think it might just have to be the coaching and which QB is going to have the bigger moment.
Yeah, no,
again, like Joe said, don't ever count the Chiefs out. But Ravens at home, they're terrifying at home, man. That stadium is nothing to be shy about, man.
Yeah. Again, I mean, everybody was talking about Mahomes going on the road in the postseason for the first time of his career last week. I don't think that was a huge issue for him, even though Buffalo's a really loud and tough place to play as well. But so I mean, the Ravens, I think they're 3.5-point favorites or something like that. I don't know if it's gone down to 2.5, but now, the Ravens are definitely favored. I think a lot of it's that defense that they have, and Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, kind of the leaders there. Just, I think one of the best linebacker tandems. People can debate Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw versus them. They're pretty damn good. But I don't know, the way that this Ravens defense plays, they rely on bringing that extra guy on almost every play. Every time I watch the Ravens, they're bringing in an extra rusher, whether it's a safety, a corner, somebody off the edge. And I just think Mahomes has, maybe he doesn't have the weapons on the outside, but he has the kind of just intellect and experience as a quarterback and just how good he is to beat that. I think that's not really going to rattle him at all. So I wonder if the Ravens and Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator, come out and they don't blitz as much, but I feel like that's just part of who they are. So I don't know if they'll stop. So if that happens and they're trying to send extra rushers, I think Mahomes can take advantage of that. And they do run the ball well. They have, like you said, Pacheco. They do have a good O-line led by Creed Humphrey, the center, and the guys that they have there. I mean, they can get after you as well. I know the Ravens are the top team against the run this year, but I wouldn't put it past them to be able to figure out how to get there and wear on teams a little bit. So I think that might give the Chiefs a little bit of an edge in terms of, they're not going to struggle against this Ravens defense as other teams have, in my mind. But other than that, I think these teams are pretty similar statistically in their profiles. Both are top 5 in yards per play allowed, actually, as defenses. They're top 3 in yards per pass attempt allowed. In terms of defending against them, so that top 3 isn't they've allowed the least. So these are pretty stingy defenses.
Very good defenses.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think it might be like I said last week in Buffalo, where it's going to come down to it's going to be a lower scoring game on the margins. Who's going to make who do you think is going to make that mistake at the end? And I don't know if I would pick Patrick Mahomes to make that mistake. But on the other side, surprisingly, they are kind of both these teams. Stand corrected my earlier point. They're actually pretty pedestrian against the run. They're middle of the pack in total yards per rush allowed. Actually bottom 10 in yards per rush allowed, both of them, and they're middle of the pack in total rush yards allowed. So they do surprisingly, both these teams can run on both of these teams. They aren't built necessarily to stop you to short gains in the running game, but they are built to bend but not break, defend against the pass, which I guess is a smart thing to do in today's NFL is defend against the pass because everyone's trending that way. So I don't know. Overall, these units are both pretty good. Again, I think it's going to come down to the defense and who's going to make that critical mistake. Lamar had a fumble or two against the Texans. He could have lost some of those, and it's just like who's going to make that really critical mistake. So it's you know, again, I don't know if I can bet against the Chiefs here because they just been there, and I think the expectations that the Ravens have being the 1 seed, finally getting to an AFC championship with Lamar Jackson, I don't know if that'll be too much for them to try to beat this team.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be
man. I
really
think
interesting to see.
yeah. My least favorite thing about this whole matchup is the fact that if the Niners do win,
Yeah.
it's going to be either a 2019 or a 2012 kind of
Oh
rematch.
man,
So
bad memories gonna come right back, gonna flood the
I
mind
know.
again. But gotta win one first. Gotta win one first
There you
for
go.
sure. Yeah, we'll worry about that later. But yeah, both these teams are scary just because, mostly because just the quarterbacks that they have. But I don't know, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh. I think they're both, obviously they've been coaches
Great
forever.
coaches.
They've been great coaches. They both won rings. Harbaugh's won one, and Andy's won a couple now. But so I don't know if I necessarily say there's an advantage in the coaching, head coaching at least. But I don't know. I feel like Andy Reid's going to figure out how to get past Mike McDonald's defense a little bit and figure something out with Patrick. So yeah, that's going to be, I think it's going to be one for the ages. I think it's really going to be a good game. So excited to watch that one while we nervously await 49ers to play on Sunday afternoon in the late spot. So the two teams, the Lions and the Niners, will know who they will play in Vegas once that one kicks off. So obviously one of the best weekends of the year. I think divisional rounds is pretty awesome. You get 2 games a day, and they're both really high level football. But championship Sundays pretty special as well. So Bryce, do we want to finish with some of your favorite sports memories?
Yeah, man. Sure thing. One that queued up right away in my mind, because I was there December 23rd of 2013, I
Ooh.
believe it was. The Niners played the Falcons.
Oh yeah.
And if you already know what this moment's going to be,
Mhm.
it's the pick at the stick. It's probably one of my favorite moments to be a part of. Nervously watching Matt Ryan, who was probably at the top of his game within those years, playing the Niners down toward the red zone. Big stop by Navarro Bowman to take it all the way to the house. I've never heard a stadium roar as much as Candlestick. And that's probably the thing I miss most about that stadium is the engulfing encore and boom that you hear at that because it had so much
That
culture.
was the
And I
last
think
game at the stick too.
that was the last game at the stick.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was amazing. I remember being so nervous and watching Navarro Bowman juggle that ball. Uh, and I've never seen him run so fast in my life. So that one's a special 49er one.
Yeah.
Now in terms of what other ones that we got here? Definitely. Oh, Tim Lincecum, Giants fan of mine. Sorry, today's fans love the A's.
All right,
No
man.
longer getting out. Now you guys got the Oakland Ballers now, an independent
Yeah.
league, which is a very interesting run.
Yeah,
But
they won't even let him play at the Coliseum.
yeah,
John
no,
Fisher.
that's absolutely like wild. Tim the Freak Lincecum throwing not one but two perfect games. Probably
Yeah.
one of the most rare things that I'll ever see as a baseball fan, especially with 3 championships in what 5 years, 6 years span, whatever. It's one of the greatest Giants baseball teams, if not baseball teams, to ever come about. No controversies or anything like that. Just pure dominance against those teams.
You meant no hitters though, right? He didn't have a perfect game.
Yeah, I think he was it no hitters, 2 no hitters.
I think it was no hitter.
Maybe
Yeah,
not
I think
perfect
you
game, but
said.
I think it
no
was no
hitters.
hitter.
Yeah, you think you said perfect games. I just remember. Yeah,
Oh
he
yeah,
threw 2 no hitters. Yeah, I was
two
gonna
no
say.
hitters. My bad, my bad.
Matt Cain
But
had
still,
that. Cain had that perfect game. I
Kane
thought.
had
Right?
that perfect
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's insane. But yeah, no,
Um,
Lincecum was crazy, man. Just he, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say flash in the pan, but once that velocity went, he was out of the league, but he was happy. He won those chips, and he was a dominant player. A couple Cy Youngs under his belt as well. Just
oh, absolutely,
beast.
man. I think yeah, and even like having Hunter Pence, one of my favorite Giants players. What a interesting spectacle of a man to watch. You watch him bat, you watch him catch, you watch him throw. It's always going to be entertaining. And I remember playing ball as a kid and trying to imitate him. He's the funniest guy, great guy all around. Still is part of the organization today. And then I mean, Warriors wise, because we'll go towards a little bit hitting all sports. Let's see. There's so many with the Splash Brothers, man. Clay Thompson, what is it? 11 dribble game.
Yeah,
That's
37
wild to
points
watch. 37 points.
in a quarter.
And I mean, how can you forget Mike Green's bang with Steph Curry? I mean, that one.
In OKC.
In OKC, you do not want to hear Mike say bang against your team, because you know it's bad at that point. Game's pretty much over. So that's a great one. And then recently, we'll bring it full circle to NHL. I got the pleasure of going to my first hockey game out here in New York against the New York Islanders when they were playing the San Jose Sharks. Shout out to my boy Andrew Kodov for accompanying me on that game.
Friend of the program, Andrew Kodov.
Very funny.
and great game. We started, I think, what period were we in? We came into the third period down 4-1, and I was wearing a Sharks gear shirt, and Joseph knows about this superstition of mine. And I go, Kodov, I got to take this off. Like, this is not helping. And he's like, whatever, man, just do it. Come back 4-4 to get to overtime after I take the shirt off. And overtime hits. I think there's about 30 seconds left, then going down to 10, and craziest goal, probably 3 seconds left in overtime. Yeah. Sharks win it.
That was just a couple months ago, right?
It was a couple months ago. So I think that leads me on the last point of, it's not it's not stupid if it works, right? And I've told Joe this before too. And I don't know if I shared this with you, Dom, when we were at the game together a couple weeks ago against the Ravens. But every game day. So remember when the Niners this year started 6-0, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had that, and I was like, all right, man, they're doing great. I can't wait till I could start I'm starting to wear more stuff around, jersey, shirt, hat, whatever.
Sure.
That 3-game streak of losing,
mm-hmm.
probably the most devastating. Like, everybody was in panic mode. SpongeBob in his brain, everything on fire, kind of reminiscing. Those 3 games, I wore something 49ers related for those 3 games. And after those 3 games, when we went on the bye, I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to, every time the game goes on, I'm not going to wear anything.
Stop repping,
Stop repping, and I will rep the day after. If we win or if we lose, doesn't matter. Every game that I've not worn something, we won.
So they lost the Ravens game because you wore your gear to the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Damn. We got to keep you far away from Levi Stadium then.
Yeah. Absolutely. You got to keep me far away from Brock Purdy as much as possible. That's why I'm in New York over here, buddy. That's why the Super Bowl is going to be at Las Vegas.
Yep,
so
that's where they put you on the East Coast.
Just to leave it with you, for anybody who's listening and, is, I don't know if superstitions work or something like that. It's only stupid if it doesn't work.
It's true. It's true. And not for sports. Sports is special. Like there is a superstition. If you have a superstition or a thing that works for you, you got to keep doing it. I would never judge anybody for doing that because
absolutely
what works.
And to all my Niners, and all my Niners fans, I'm still faithful. I'm doing it for the team.
Yeah,
because I don't love you guys. No. I'm doing it for the team.
Big team guy.
No, you're a selfless guy. That's what I'm saying. Like I would kill me. I want to rep my team, but if you're not helping, you got to do something. So respect to you, Bryce.
Hey, man, I'll be on the bench. I'll be water boy. It's all good. I got to be out there playing.
We're all pulling our weight. We're all working to get that ultimate goal. So, oh God, let's hope and pray for Sunday. I think it'll be a really good game. It's going to be a challenge. But Niners got to be a lot better, lot sharper than they were last week. I think they will be. I think they'll look at the tape and they'll see that, if they play their game and limit those mistakes and, just be better, tighten up on both ends. I think they can do this and they can get back to an opportunity, to get back to greatness again, and that's all they can ever ask. I think there's their 19th NFC Championship game all time, the most of any team in the
I'm glad
NFL.
he said that. We gotta
Yep.
give him some credit, man.
Yeah.
Gotta get 19 championship appearances, most out of the NFL. That's amazing.
7th in 13 years. Basically 7th in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not taking that for granted, but I wish they'd be better than 2-4 in them. So I'm hoping they go 3-4 in my lifetime on Sunday. 3 in a row that they've been to. So let's try to change the script, boys. So I appreciate having you both on. It was a great discussion. Bryce, welcome to the Cheap Seats family. You can come on anytime. You're part of the family now, and everybody will love you.
Appreciate it, man.
So appreciate it, guys. Let's have a good weekend, shall we?
Let's go Niners, baby.
Thanks, boys.